So whenever, do one of you want to start off?
Go ahead, Todd.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start it.
But the ending part of mine goes into what he's doing.
Hold on. Sorry.
It's fine, and I can trim off the recording too. So until we're ready to start.
Okay. All right, I'm going to discuss the Wimmer's ground sorties here, and I'm going to start out with some about the published guidance that you need to follow for it, and discuss some high interest items, and finish up with some questions. I'm going to mainly deal with sortie completion, not sortie creation. So the published guidance for this is CAP Regulation 60-3, which covers core CS training and operational missions. And basically, the IC is responsible for the accuracy and quality of the information that's in Wimmers, and they can delegate it, but it's still their responsibility. And the reason I mention that is because when I'm going in to review sorties, this is the person I'm going to contact is the IC. And so I go to them first, and I'll typically also include the person that is doing that ground sortie, like the team leader or whoever was involved, if their name is on a receipt that's uploaded or there's any other issues. And then, of course, CAP Regulation 173-3, payment for mission support. This establishes all the procedures for processing claims that deal with mission reimbursements. And this is whether it's for a member, for the wing, or even if you're using the NHQFS card for a sortie, we still have to follow the guidance in here. And so paragraph 1.1 will basically outline what expenses are authorized to be claimed on for national to pay, or for the Air Force in this case, since we're talking about Air Force assigned missions. And I won't go through those, because of time, but you can look at those and see. And basically, what we need to make sure is that we enter all sortie data in Wimmers within 72 hours of that sortie date for the sortie itself, not the mission, but the sortie. Now, I also key on this because it's really important during the end of the fiscal year in September that we do this as soon as possible. If you wait 72 hours, there's a good chance that possibly what's going to happen is that money can be pulled by national headquarters, because what they're trying to do is move everything that's excess around to other wings, other missions, and so that it can be spent before the end of the fiscal year. Because I've actually seen where the money was pulled and we didn't have anything in there in time for a particular sortie. And so we had to backtrack. We had to go back to the NOC and say, hey, look, we're not done with this one yet. And we were still within the 72 hours, but we had to ask them to fix that. Okay, key paragraph here talks about, it's 231, which outlines the minimum receipt requirements. And there's a lot of good information that's in this paragraph about what to do if there's ever a question. And we're going to cover this in detail later. And the next point there, it talks about the wings have to process the E-108s within 45 days after sortie completion. If we don't do that, and we have money due back to us or to a member, then we risk losing that money, because what happens then is they lock the mission out, and then you go into a queue basically until the end of the fiscal year to see if there's any money left. And the one time that we did this, that it happened to us, we didn't get paid. So just a warning. These publications, of course, are on the CAP publications website at that URL that you see there in the bottom. All right, so here, a little bit more discussion on the wings and not the members. And the reason I say not the members is because we want to make sure that you get paid. And in order for us to do that properly, if somebody goes in and processes an E-108 that doesn't necessarily understand all the ramifications or the issues that you need to make sure are covered before you do that, it could get rejected by national and they could disapprove it. So if you go in here and you see this mission reimbursement area here, you can click on that, okay? And what that's going to do, it's going to bring up this next page, and it's going to show you all of the E108s that have been processed against that mission. And they're all have a suffix appended to them, depending on how many there are. What we ask you not to do is to not click on this create new E108 button. That's where it's going to get you into trouble, okay, if there's a problem. So just let me take care of that, and we'll make sure that we get you paid on time and make sure everything's good to go before it hits and heads down to national headquarters. All right, high interest items. Basically, the first one there is not using the EFS shell card for Air Force funded missions. And so this can be a little bit of a problem. And basically, in general, these are missions that are going to have the 21 Alpha, 21 Tango, or 21-1 in the mission designation for it to say, yes, this is an Air Force assigned mission. Now, I say in general because sometimes things change. And the best thing to do, again, is to go back to the IC and make sure that during the initial briefing that all of this information is passed out, that yes, you are going to use the card for this mission number, or no, you're not, and this is why. And we just want to make sure that the first, this is makes it very easy that they came up with these cards to use, because now the member or the wing doesn't have to worry about getting reimbursed. And we want to work as hard as possible to keep all of you folks from having to do this. The next issue is mistakenly using the EFS shell card for Missouri miscellaneous missions. Again, in general, if it's not an Air Force assigned funded mission, then we don't want you to use the EFS shell card for those purposes. Again, go to the IC, because sometimes what we'll do is we'll try to make it easier again on the member to and will allow use of the EFS shell card in certain circumstances. But in general, don't use it unless it's those missions above. And then avoid entering multiple vehicles on one sortie if at all possible. Just try to stick to one vehicle per sortie. And I only say this because in these larger missions where you have multiple vehicles and they're all packed into one sortie, it's really challenging to go in after the fact and try and sort all of these separate vehicles out, especially if they all have got fuel assigned to them. And so I don't know what it's like there on the ground. So from logistically speaking, so I haven't seen that part of it, and you may have a very good reason for needing to do that, but please, if you could, avoid it. And don't enter fuel expenses to additional miscellaneous expenses. Enter or tag it to a sortie, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail here, because what happens, the fuel expenses only go in one place, and if they're added under miscellaneous or additional expenses, they're not necessarily going to show up correctly when National goes in to look for their fuel receipts at the each month. Because basically, for these EFS shell cards that NHQ has, every month they send a reconciliation report to me and say, okay, here are the receipts that I'm missing. Because thinking about it, this one person essentially is having to go in for all the wings and look and make sure all these receipts are uploaded. And if she can't find them, then she comes to us and says, I need these, or we draft the money back from your wing. All right. So basically, if you look at here, here's an example of a sortie that we were talking about. So if you're going back and you look at these different areas, you can see right here, you've got this just happens to be a C mission. So it's not, that shouldn't make any differences here, but we want to make sure that the vehicle here is loaded correctly, because otherwise that'll cause a problem, especially if there's a receipt that you need to get reimbursed with. So you don't want to go to sortie files to upload your receipt, and you don't want to go here to enter additional expenses. All right. There's a couple of options. One, you can go here and close out the sortie without debriefing, which I don't do this part, so that's something that you guys can probably discuss on your own on what's the best option for you. But there, you can actually upload your receipt to this portion. Or you can go down here to the debrief sortie button, and that's going to allow you to pop up with this. Oh, hold on. Did it not work for me? It must be in a different screen. Oh, yeah. sorry, I got ahead of myself. So on this one, what we're talking about on that screen I just showed you is incomplete sortie data such as personnel, vehicles, odometer readings, estimated time of departures and arrivals, etc. And then you need to make sure you're checking the correct blocks on the next screen, such as no fuel, direct pay to member, or NHQ credit card. The starting and ending sortie mileage doesn't always match from sortie to sortie, so that's a problem, and that's another thing we check, because what they're looking for is they want to make sure that they're paying for the mileage attributed to these missions and not something else. And then the reimbursed to block, making sure that that's correctly filled out for member reimbursements. It's reimbursed to the wing. There's basically two options. So for this part, it's reimbursed to the wing, and then the wing will reimburse the member. Or it's a direct pay to the member, and the member must submit a CAP Form 179 to headquarters CAP FM for that direct deposit. And so that's a mistake I think that sometimes happens, because folks assume they're going to get paid if they click that direct pay to member block if they have a reimbursement due to them. But again, you have to have previously submitted that form down to NHQ. It doesn't come to the wing, it goes straight to FM, and they've got your bank account information, and the money gets directly deposited into your account. So anyway, the screen that I was talking about, so making sure that these required blocks are filled out, ATDs, ATAs, the vehicles there from before, the starting and ending odometer readings. If you had no fuel, make sure you check the no fuel block. If it's an NHQ card, make sure that's checked. If it's a direct pay to member and you submitted that 179 form, check that. Otherwise, if you haven't submitted that form, but it's still your reimbursement, you're going to enter your CAP ID here, leave that set to Missouri, upload your receipt, and then we'll get you paid and reimbursed, because it's going to create a specific 108 for you alone, just to reimburse. Okay, next issue. So the receipts, we're trying to look at those here and make sure they're annotated correctly to include the items that are listed in CAP Regulation 173-3. You want to show the total miles traveled for the affected sortie and not the odometer readings, because sometimes I get a lot of receipts that are showing the odometer reading, and that's not what we're looking for. We need the total miles traveled, and that may involve several sorties. So you may have had it uploaded to one specific sortie, but it may include 2 or 3 sorties that that fuel receipt actually applies to. And that's what they're going to want to see, to make sure that everything is there. Now, sometimes if the mileage looks particularly bad, say you're only getting like 3 or 4 miles to the gallon, and they actually figure this, I check it. You're going to kind of need to explain why that MPG was so low. And one reason could be that the vehicle was being used and it was idling for a large amount of time. It just didn't go anywhere. You needed the heat on, or you needed power for something. And so that's a valid excuse, and you just explain that, and then they won't disapprove you want to wait for the sortie for the reimbursement. The next thing is illegible, or cropped receipts. Sometimes this happens with the cam scanners or similar apps. Just please make sure that you go back and look at the receipt and that it is legible and we can read everything. PDF is preferred if at all possible, because with multiple sorties and multiple missions to look at, it is much easier to deal with a PDF document than it is a JPEG, especially when they are uploaded sideways or upside down. And finally, highly recommend you keep the hard copies of anything that you've uploaded, or a legible digital version, until you know the mission's been completed and all of the 108s have been processed and we've been reimbursed, either the individual themselves or the wing. Okay, so next we'll go over the receipt itself. And these examples you have, this has been sent out before. So the sample receipt is something that we were provided by National Headquarters. They're looking for a vendor name, the date of the service when it happened, the vendor location, quantity of fuel, the price per gallon, and the total purchase. And they don't like to see anything more than regular gasoline. They kind of bristle if you start putting super or premium or anything like that on there. You're going to need the vehicle ID or the plate number, depending on whether it's COV or your personal vehicle. That should be on there. The mission number and the sortie number, or numbers if, like I said previously, this applies to more than one sortie. And then again, the total miles covered for all those sorties. And that's really it. At this point, I would open it up to questions, but I think we're the only couple on here, a couple of us, and appreciate what you all do for service, your service to CAP, and the volunteer time you spend. It's really awesome. You guys really appreciate a nod for that. And that's it for me.
All right. I'll see if I can get to my computer and I'll start the winners for ground teams here. Share screen. I think you have to get out of it.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah. Did I get out?
No, I still see your screen.
Okay. Sorry. This is new to me too.
Try again. I just changed the settings, so.
All right, there we go.
Okay.
Let
All
me
right.
hit this. And there we go. Hit plus. That. All right. I'm going to start talking about what happens to a ground team when they're called out. And one of the first things I wish everybody would have is, this is what I call my ground team checklist. And if you can see at the top, when you're called, and usually the IC will call the group commander. The group commander will get his people together, be a ground branch director or air branch or both, and then start working with the IC. So I started with, this is our training mission number here. I have set up a tabletop exercise. So we made it ground team sortie number 1. And for my new ground branch director, I put her name in and the date. This is when we were called. We probably would assemble, I said, at my house, and the equipment we're going to need, that the ELT signal is the type of mission we're doing, and equipment. Now, that's when we go back here. When you're called out, you go there and you will hit brief. Now, usually the ground branch director has already inputted on authority what they want done before they give it to you. So this is it. You have a ELT going off at the Fredericktown Airport. So you put that in there. Then you go back to your checklist. You go to Wimmers and you go and select the mission. So here it is. Let me go back. All right, this mission, you were probably already told, will be 21T 4481. You click on that. You now go to ground sorties. You have already been told you're going to be sortie number 1. So you click on the brief. And there's what your assignment, you probably already heard it verbally, but this is what you're going to be assigned. Then the next thing you do is start with, as soon as I find it, I always have, no, there it is. I still use a hard copy 109 because you can input the information here. You can leave notes. You can use this to help input like I did here. So I have to sign in my people. You go back to Wimmers. Go to sorting main. Sign in new members. You have to have everybody signed into the mission before you can use them. So I'm going to input 4. 2. Oh, 2. Which is my Richard Ford, and I guarantee you he will be my driver because he's a professional commercial driver. So I've been with him before, so I have a whole lot of trust in his driving skills. Put some more of my members in. 5, 1, 3, 6, enter. He's, I think, a senior rating in communication, so he'll be running the radio into my van. And another member I want to sign in. Major Volt, just try to keep me out of trouble. All right. Now, we want to put in the van we are going to use. So you can go here. It is a corporate van. Select. Look down for your number. Enter. Now they have all been signed in. So now I can go here on the sortie, put there, hit add. Now I'm going to start putting in my people. I've just added myself in on this. Now I got other people I need to add in on the sortie. Of course, nobody got entered. 485402. Sign in. 5, 1, 3, 6. Enter, and be sure to do where they're supposedly would be at and hit sign in, unlike what I did the first time. And then we go back. Five, 4, 5, boom. And now I can do this. Okay, now Richard's in there. How's it? And now, Major Vault. All right, I have now put all my team members in the briefing, the sorting main. We have now got in the vehicle, our call sign, where we're at, the time we're there, getting ready to go to leave, where we're going, Breakout Airport, and the estimated time of getting there. I also put in the mission where we're at, which is where the van's at. We're all going to be here because predominantly most of our missions are ELTs going off, and we'll just meet and go. Unlike bigger missions where you have a bigger staff to do multiple things. Now, that takes care of that. And then one of the other things you got to do when you're doing all this is you got to do an OMR. Now, when you got your team together, you will separate all these different tasks to get going to different members. You will assign doing an MOR to one of your people. Now, here's a view of the MOR that I want to upload. I did that today. And you can see the score. And the briefing officer can approve that when it's within that number range. So, I go back to Wimmers. So we go to Sortie Files, select Files. It doesn't show up there, so we're going to hit add a folder, ORM. ORM. So we're creating a file. Now we go pick up this, where's it added? There's the mission number. And there is my ORM that I've already done. Upload. Now, while one member is doing the ORM, another member, preferably your driver, is going to do a Form 73 on your van or vehicle to check that out. So that needs to be uploaded before you go. So, add folder. File. And there's the one we did for today's exercise. Open. Those are now in for the ground branch director to see. And again, I would also at the same time start a ground team mission log. I know we're doing everything on computers, but again, this helps keeps notes so you can remember things that, you know, you get 2 hours, 3 hours later, get back to mission base, you can't remember. So now you still have it on a hard copy. So you make sure everybody's doing that. Then you go back to Wimmers. Hit update. So everything is now on there. You now go to your team, brief to everybody on what they're expected, what's the possibilities and what you're going to be doing. And then update your hard copy on your 109, which again, whoops, it's in my way. Oh, got it. There we go. Again, there's your 109, and this is what I filled out for the training mission and tabletop I did. So after you got everything of those two things inputted, your ORM and your 73, make sure your ground branch director looks at it and gives you the okay to release you. Then you just go start doing you do the mission, you go down, whatever the task is required. So the next thing, when you come back to base, you log back into this mission, and I'll go through it one more time. Oops. Go back into ground sorties, current missions. All right, you go back into your mission. You go back to ground sorties. Now, you're going to go into edit. All right, this does not change. Usually. You will now go to the debrief, make sure everything is still good. All right. You go back to look at your hard copy 109. And your the hour you left, 8:30. The hour you got there, starting mileage when you, that's why I keep the hard copy. You can write all this down. Ending mileage. Now, this is a tabletop exercise, so I'm going to make sure I click on no fuel because this doesn't count. Now, you go back down here to conditions, which is on the back of your 109 hard copy. So you will go in, and it was clear, 10 miles, no, terrain, we're going to call flat, light conditions, it was bright today, open, it was a bit windy though. And then you will put in here the time you're doing a debrief. I'm going to call and you located the we actually located it. Now, as Todd was talking about before, you got to make sure you have this right. And then you would click whatever way you want reimbursed. Be sure you put that fuel receipt in or it creates a big mess. I think Todd's shaking his head at me. Yeah. And then you will hit update. So everything's in. We'll go back to our sortie main. Now what we want to do is go to sortie files. And we're going to click the 109. There's the 109 file we made a PDF of. We're going to hit that. Upload that. So there's your 109. And we have already got that one. You got the 73. So now I want to make sure we're going to upload the ground team mission log. So we're going to put on there, add folder. Ground team log, choose. And there is your PDF. We'll go ahead and put that open. Upload file. Now, the other one, no, what was that again? Oh yeah. While we're, we try to keep everything together, I'm going to go ahead and put in my checklist that I use for the mission. Because as mission staff, the more information I can see, the better decision making I can make. So I go there, add folder. Choose your file. And there's my checklist already scanned. Enter. Upload file. So now I have everything that we need. So let's run it real quick. You will already probably see this when you get the call. You will put in the van that you're going to use. You then have to make sure the members are signed in before you can put them into your sortie personnel. You go to brief. And again, this should already be there, what you're supposed to be doing. And if there's any the call signs or anything they want you to use, they will have this on here for you. And then when you get back, you go to debrief. And then you will put in the time. And that's one reason why I still like the hard copy 109, because you can still use that to keep notes and help you remember what you did. And then when you come back 3 hours later, you don't have to sit and think about it. You already have it wrote down. And then you do everything you do for the debrief. You tell them what you did, and then you can look at the electronic 109, and they're everything we need. And that, I believe, is everything we need to get a team going. And this is usually for, all right, we got an ELT going off. They call the group commander. The group commander calls everybody, and they find a team that's close by. It's their responsibility to get some of this done. The briefing is the ground branch director's responsibility. The IC's responsibility is to make sure they're doing it. So basically, that's all I have. I'm quite willing to send these papers to anybody that would want them. And explain some more if I have to, but the checklist does everything. You just check it off. And I think that's a good thing that the ground teams have a checklist, because everybody else in CAP has one, and we can't be running around trying to figure out what we need to do. So I have it all set up for you, everybody to, all right, I got this done, I got this done, I got this done, ready to go. So basically that's all I have. And I'm going to click out, I think.
Todd, do you have anything to add after his presentation?
No, I mean, he reiterated some of those points that help with the receipts and, making sure you get those blocks filled in, and that's what helps.
Okay. Yep. As Colonel Harder said, if anybody has any questions, we can reach out to either him or Todd. And if they want the forms, we can get those to you as well. So thank you for those that tune in and joined us.
Yeah,
Thanks.
again, anybody give me I send all the forms. I have some of the forms where it's in uh, Word, where you can fill it out on the computer, then just save it. I just wanted to demonstrate, some of the stuff. You can scan it, then input it, or you can save it. Just when you do that, you want to make sure you have a mission number that you're putting this stuff in, so you know where it is when it's time to upload it to Wimmers. Again, contact me and I'll give you everything I got. And if you have a question, I'll tell you what to do to help you out. Thank you.